centered in around Fremont, California. They can't state exactly the size of it, but they believe it's about a 5.2.
Fremont out in the East Bay, for those around the nation not familiar. Is that correct? About, what, 15 miles from here, 20 miles?
That's correct. There has been some damage. We don't know. We know that a bridge has been damaged. We know there's been some injuries, but we don't know any more than that at the present time because it just happened. Sure.
You've been on the force for how many years?
22.
You've experienced earthquakes before. Now, it happened at 5:05. It is now 5:23 local time. We're 15, 18 minutes past. Can you just estimate whether this is the worst in your recollection?
We had one in 1958, which was as severe as this one. I believe this one is a little bit more severe. However, we won't know until we do get the calling on it.
I feel bad asking this question. It's a very mundane consideration at this moment, but here at Candlestick Park, 62,000 people. An initial announcement was made asking people to leave the upper. What is the status of this structure here and the SFPD's opinion about evacuating Candlestick?
Well, as you know, Candlestick has been around for a number of years, and they're concerned about the safety of Candlestick. I don't know what they have said to the fans that are already in there, whether to evacuate or not. I do know that fans are leaving because of the fact that they don't feel secure inside, and at the present, we're just hoping that there's no damage to Candlestick or anybody else at the present time.
I know you've got many duties. Thank you for stopping by, officer. The quake reported by KPIX says the strongest since 1906 occurred at 5:05 Pacific time. I was in row 17 of the upper deck directly behind home plate. Joe Torre was there, Chris Myers, Chris Berman, John Hamlin, our producer. I believe now, I don't have a monitor, but I've been told, are looking live at a live picture inside Candlestick Park. And initially, the crowd is very calm. There was one announcement made about 4 to 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes after the earthquake occurred, asking those, I believe this is what we heard, it was tough to hear the public address, asking people in the upper deck to leave. I was in the upper deck. It was my first earthquake. And for the first preliminary seconds, I thought it was a flyover perhaps of a low jet, part of the pregame ceremonies. Within about 5 seconds, it became glaringly apparent that's not what it was. A lot of the locals took this rather easily. We were sitting in the press section, which includes people from all over the country and the world, and I can assure you we did not take it as easily. And again, to recap, the report from KPIX television here in San Francisco is that the initial reading is a 5.2 on the Richter scale. There has been damage. I can look out this particular way, and I don't believe we can get the shot, but I can see some smoke out this way. There are aftershocks occurring right now. Can you guys in the truck feel it? I'm having trouble. Okay. It's not really apparent to us here. The remote truck, which is 15 feet to my right, is up on an 18-wheel trailer, and it's more apparent to them, the KBRU remote truck, and they are sensing some aftershocks in there. And again, the first was at 5:05 local. It's now 5:26 local. And there has been damage. There has been damage, I am told, to one of the bridges over the bay. We do not know which bridge it is, whether it is the San Mateo Bridge, and I am told it is the east side of the Bay Bridge. There may be some damage. From central San Francisco directly across near to downtown Oakland may have sustained some damage near the east side, near the Oakland side of San Francisco Bay. And again, the initial reports is that the telephone communications apparently were severed near Fremont, and the epicenter, which is the center of an earthquake, would be about 20 miles to the east of here. We're on the San Francisco side of the bay. We don't know what the story is with this baseball game, and quite frankly, to the 63,000 souls gathered right here, it is not the prime consideration right now. As you heard that officer from the San Francisco Police Department tell you, there has been damage. Players, the A's had just walked out. You have to walk out of the right field bullpen area as the visiting team to the third base dugout, and the players had just walked out. The starting pitchers had not even begun warming up, Don Robinson and Bob Welch. ABC was on the air. I'm sure many of you were watching them at home for about 5 minutes and had been through the initial portion of their telecast, was setting up the telecast. We were watching KGO television on our monitors up in the press area, and I'm told now that there are reports that an entire segment of the Bay Bridge has collapsed. That is a report. It is unconfirmed. We don't have any positive proof of that, but that is a report, and we pray that is not true. It is a thoroughfare that carries. It is a section. You can eyeball that, Mike? We have a live picture from a local station, I'm told, and maybe we will be able to transpose that to our uplink and bring it to you. But an entire section of the Bay Bridge has collapsed, and it would be miraculous if there is no loss of life. 30 feet, a 30-feet section, I am told, has collapsed. Again, to reset, 5:05 Pacific time, 8:05 Eastern time. An earthquake believed to be of at least the magnitude of 5.2 on the Richter scale struck Northern California. It is reported to be, at least from one broadcast report, and I don't know if the numbers will bear this out, the most severe since the great earthquake of 1906, which we have. Can you hold that still, please, guys? We're on. That is the Bay Bridge, and I'm going to walk over past, and I'm going to eyeball that. Kevin, can you bring that out to me, please? I got to be able to see, and that's the damage that has been caused. That's the Bay Bridge that goes from basically downtown San Francisco across. A shattering picture. I'm told that now we're getting close to being able to bring you the picture that was on ABC at the time of what occurred at the moment this shock occurred, this earthquake occurred at 5:05. We are standing outside Candlestick Park, outside center field. We left the ballpark, producer John Hamlin and myself, within 5 minutes of this, ran down, and there was confusion. There was never any sense of panic. But I must tell you that even police officers we would ask on the way down would say, we don't know if it's time yet to evacuate the building. Now, we're going to show you, if you're watching ABC, you saw this. This is what happened, and we have natural sound, so I'm going to lay out. You're going to listen and watch. This is as the earthquake occurred.
Allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take a 2-1
I'll tell you what, we're having an earthquake.
And that was it. Is this live picture, guys? This is live inside Candlestick. Now, that's the lower level. I don't know if that's our camera or not. Do we have control over that camera? Can we zoom out? I'd like to see how filled the stadium is. I've just gotten a monitor here outside. This place will hold 62,000. We're not playing baseball for a while, if at all, tonight. And apparently the preliminary reports of heavy damage, and you saw that picture of the Bay Bridge. You hesitate to call things a calamity and to put captions on this. We're only 30 minutes, 25 minutes removed from the event. So, 25 minutes ago, Northern California rocked by what is apparently a major earthquake that has apparently caused damage. You have seen a live picture of a damaged, apparently collapsed section to the Bay Bridge. That was a picture from the Goodyear blimp that is here with ABC in coordination with ABC Sports covering the World Series. We have been told that the epicenter is out towards the East Bay, about 10, 15, 20 miles east of here on the other side of the Oakland Bay Bridge. And again, that is the bridge. There is no traffic on it. And that is just moments ago. That is not a live picture. And is that the San Mateo Bridge now, I'm being told? That is the San Mateo Bridge, not the Bay Bridge. Do I stand corrected on that? Are we sure of that? I'm told it's the Bay Bridge. Let's get this straight. It's the Bay Bridge. The Bay Bridge that has apparently sustained that damage. We just want to make sure that we have these facts correct. Well, we will endeavor to nail that down. We will be back. We're going to step aside for just a moment. We trust you will stay with us on this major story of a developing earthquake, the scope of which is not yet apparent. Baseball is well off the front page. There are many more important issues to these reports, and there is a fire is reported in Berkeley. All right, so that is where we stand. We have no reports of casualties. Again, the San Francisco Police Department has told us injuries, yes, damage, yes, fatalities, we do not know. It was approximately 25 minutes to the first pitch on the field when this earthquake occurred. And Candy Maldonado has been with the San Francisco Giants for several years, and even if you only spend 6 months of the year in Northern California, earthquakes are a way of life. Let's listen to his reaction to what happened.
Because, we were down on the ground, and I was over there in my locker, and I hear this noise. And I remember Don Robinson was coming in. It sounds like an earthquake. And then this thing started to really, and I said, wait. As I said, the light went off. The lights were going back and forth. It went off, and I just looked for the door out. I said, I'm right up here outside. Yeah. I mean, because everybody's trying to run, and it's pitch black in there. And but like not
So that was Candy Maldonado with his reaction to what happened. Now, there are reports, excuse me just for a second, sir, guys, if you could give us just a little bit of room, that sections of I-80, which is an east-west highway, and 880, which is a north-south highway on the East Bay, that sections of those highways have collapsed.
Felt as far away as Los Angeles.
It has been felt, we're now being told, felt as far away as Los Angeles, reported locally as a 5.2 on the Richter scale, and again reported locally on KPIX as the strongest earthquake since 1906. I am going to hazard a guess, and it's totally just a guess, that we're not going to play baseball here tonight, given the scope of what has apparently occurred in this metropolitan area. That is, there is no confirmation on that. There are still thousands. Joe, come on over. Joe Torre, who is analyzing with us, you just left the ballpark. How many people would you say if it holds 62? About half full still, or more than half full?
Probably half full. The thing that scared us, Bob, we were up top. We were about 5 rows from the top where you were sitting there, and it was really scary. And a lot of the people all have transistor radios, all trying to get some information. They say there's some major fires around town, and it's part of the Bay Bridge, and it's frightening at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Have they made any announcement inside to the fans? They made an initial announcement about a minute after the quake. Have they made any further announcements inside?
There was nothing else said, but they still have no electricity, and without power, I'm sure they're not going to try to do anything, especially with what you mentioned, how disastrous this thing could be.
The scope is frightening. I'm sure we're going to work on getting some more player reacts. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah,
it's your first. You've been out here a number of times. Bay Bridge, 5 o'clock. You know the area well, and we can just hazard a guess and say a prayer for what occurred on the collapsed section.
Yeah, I mean, rush hour, really any hour, Bobby. One thing that we weren't sure of, and I don't know what Joe just said, but we were sitting there in the upper deck, and, you know, we looked back afterwards, and there were some cracks along the upper part. Now, some people who have season tickets who were sitting even behind us said that, oh, no, those were there. A couple other people weren't sure. I don't want to, you know, kind of get anything going like there's a rumor that, oh, my God, the stadium is cracked. Probably isn't, but there were some cracks up there. We've heard KGO reporting out here that, I mean, compared to what's going on the Bay Bridge, and we hear there's a major fire in Berkeley that I can't confirm. Maybe you've heard that already. We saw some smoke from over the bay here at Richmond, where there's some refineries. KGO is saying that they're going to try and play the game, which at this point, you know, kind of seems superfluous.
But the Richter reading was actually of 6.5, so this was a fairly hefty, indeed a very hefty earthquake. And I am told that we have some street scenes from San Francisco. If we have those ready, let's take a look at them right now. We are looking at these for the first time as you see them.
As I said, power was cut off to this area, so was phone service. We're told now that some phone service has been restored here. You can see people were screaming. You could definitely feel the quake. I was also just told by a police officer that there are some cracks in the upper rim of Candlestick. Half-inch cracks is what he is saying in the upper rim of Candlestick. And they have also closed the overpass now on Jamestown into Candlestick.
Of information from different parts of town, and it's like the old legend of the blind man touching the elephant. Depending on which part of the animal they are touching, they are describing different scenes. You can see, on the one hand, people there in the streets.
The ABC owned and operated station here, and now there is a tug out there. Yeah, but this, let me get Chris Myers is our West Coast correspondent, and come over to the other side, Chris, guys, because we're going to try and piece this together. You have been in L.A. for a couple of years. You've been through a few of these, so give us a first person. I know it's unscientific and it's magnified when you're in the top. We're in the top of the structure. You were here in '87. What was the reading on 87?
Exactly, Bob. Well, I have experienced earthquakes, nothing of this magnitude, and when you're in a house or an apartment in Los Angeles, it feels, the way to describe it, like you're in a shoebox and someone is shaking it. This was different. We were in the highest section of Candlestick Park, a reserve press section.
6.5,
they're saying, yeah, 6.5. They believed it's 4.5 or 6.4. Now they're saying 6.5. We also understand that because of the power problems, they may not be able to get the lights on here, although we have lights in the stadium to be able to play tonight. So that may be a reason that the refineries, too, that have reported some problems, fires breaking out because of the shaking and the earthquake, Bob. I don't know if that had anything to do with
half hour ago or so, and you can see that there is a segment of the upper span of the Bay Bridge. That is the bridge that connects Oakland, California with San Francisco. There is a segment of that bridge that has collapsed. We have reports of a number of buildings that have collapsed in and around the San Francisco area, And quite frankly, what we are doing at the moment is just trying to gather that information so that we can put it into some kind of coherent form for you. I should point out that until we do that, all I can give you is sort of the same summary that I've been giving you until now. I don't see any particular point in babbling on.
You can see it
right now.
And we are feeling a shock right now, and that shaking in your picture is being amplified by the tremor that has just gone through the top of the stadium, and we are live. They're taking the bases off 8:41 Eastern, 5:41, and we just felt it out here. We're at ground level. And now 6.5 Richter is what ABC is reporting this shock to be. And it is quite obvious now, quite obvious that this is not it never has been a baseball story. It is much larger than the events going on at Candlestick. We will step aside, Chris Berman, Chris Myers, Bob Lee, and continue from our vantage point to piece together what is
A rather massive earthquake, 6.5 on the Richter scale, fires in San Francisco, a segment of the Bay Bridge down, the game delayed, deferred, possibly even canceled, and we will give you more information as soon as it becomes available to us and we can put it into some sort of coherent form. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington.
This was a major earthquake. The AP says a major earthquake rocked Northern California this evening, and the Associated Press says that it did collapse part of the San Francisco Bridge. The earthquake certainly shook Candlestick Park, where the World Series was to have been held, and it did shake buildings as far away as San Francisco. Now, those are the confirmed reports that we have. Mark well that no one has said that the San Francisco Bridge has collapsed. No one has said that. What we do, those earthquakes generally last on the order of 7 or 8 seconds, that people feel it for that long, and sometimes for no longer than 3 or 4 seconds. Tonight, a number of people involved say that this particular earthquake lasted for about 15 seconds, which would be a long time. We know that buildings in San Francisco swayed several feet, not unusual, and most of the buildings built in recent years in that area have been built to take into account to at least some degree the possibility of earthquakes. We have no reports from Sacramento, California, which we mentioned earlier.
In construction such as that, even in old structures like the Lincoln Tunnel, there are several tunnels within tunnels. Terry Steinbeck, family is the most important thing right now. These players have family that maybe were not coming to the game, and if for that picture gives you every reason you need to know why we're not going to be playing baseball tonight, and maybe
There's in there, and I just ran out in the parking lot.
Who did it?
What's that? Well, one of them was right behind me. Roger Craig ran out here, and it was scary. I've lived here my whole life, and this is the worst one I've ever felt.
They always shook, the whole building shook like hell. I was standing here taking pictures like this, and all of a sudden I saw it go like this. I couldn't believe it. And then all the people almost run over me to get out in the parking lot.
Downtown San Francisco, and his pictures courtesy of KGO, and it's buckled, it's gone. We came down that road 4 hours ago on the way to the game, and we're not getting back that way. Devastation, elevated highways, and certainly the construction standards in this area take into account. This is 9 miles from Candlestick, and we have we're still piecing the story together, and we're told that we can't tell you how many people have been injured, how many people have been killed. Common sense tells you there are fatalities. But that is 101. That is the road that you would take, the 6-lane highway south, as we did this morning from our hotel, south approximately 7-8 miles. And if that is 9 miles north of Candlestick, Chris, that would be, come on, and you know the geography here, that would be just about downtown.
I think that might have been the lead part of 101 that goes into 80 that goes. We may not have traveled it today, but that's kind of the dump off from the bridge into San Francisco side, and. So obviously it's more than just the bridge. I mean, anybody who is endeavoring to get out of town at 5 o'clock, that's a long stretch. You're talking a couple miles out to where the bridge itself collapsed into the part that went into San Francisco. That's, I believe that was not 101 itself, but 80. But at this point,
it's not important.
At this point, it's not important. Those pictures are, in the stadium at the time, I would say, well, you and I were sitting next to each other at the time. We didn't have much to say. I would say that was about, what, 12, 15
seconds max,
15 seconds. And at first, the
background noise here as they're striking. And again, that's the section of the top level of the Bay Bridge. These two people, I am told, according to KABC, people in that car got out okay. They escaped with their lives and are undoubtedly fortunate to have done that much. Chris Myers joins me. You've been monitoring local media reports.
Television and radio stations in which he did call the game. He said there was no immediate danger now, but because there is no power in the stadium, he would like everyone to leave the stadium in an orderly fashion. He's concerned, the commissioner is, that it will get dark and too many people will be trapped inside or in the area without any way of seeing where they're going. And of course, more people rushing to get out would be dangerous. So that's his primary reason for making the decision at this point.
And just moments ago, he made the official announcement. We have that tape. We'll show you Commissioner Fay Vincent with the announcement on the
game because there is no power in the stadium. We would like you to leave in an orderly way. I don't believe there's any great danger, but we have no idea when the power is going to be on, and we have to get people out of here before it gets dark. So if you'll leave in an orderly way while there's still light, I think everybody can leave in a graceful fashion. Please leave. The game has been postponed. There'll be no baseball tonight.
Here in San Francisco. We didn't have that audio. Is that correct, guys? So the folks at home didn't hear that. If I didn't hear it, they didn't hear it. You had the audio at home. Then I apologize for talking over it because I couldn't hear it here. So my apologies there. But the announcement made of the postponement of the game. They will not play this game. There is no power here at the stick. There are
a major earthquake in California. The extent of it we do not yet know. But this will be CBS News live coverage of what KPIX in San Francisco. Now, what you see, there one highway we know has been ruptured by the quake. The situation in and around San Francisco and as far east as Sacramento is they felt a major earthquake. Now, if there's been any major damage, we do not yet know it. We know that at least one highway has been ruptured, and a portion of the San Francisco Bridge, is reported to have collapsed. Not the whole bridge itself, but a portion of that bridge. Now, these are pictures shot on the fly, if you will, by KPIX, our affiliate there in San Francisco. Their anchor person, Dave McElhavy, has been on the air with these reports. We're going to try to bring you the pictures as we have them, national and eyewitnesses on the scene, and this includes some law enforcement officials. This was a, quote, a strong earthquake. It is described by the wire services as a major earthquake. It rocked Northern California, San Francisco, and the surrounding area. Not only was there the earthquake, that much is confirmed, but that there was what is described as a relatively strong aftershock of the earthquake. Now, preliminary reports, not confirmed and not official, preliminary reports place the strength of the earthquake at about 6.5 on the Richter scale. We said this before. We'll repeat it for those of you who may not have been with us or may not have understood it. To give you a frame of reference, only a frame of reference, the earthquake that hit the San Fernando Valley in California in 1971 was 6.5 on the Richter scale. It caused considerable damage, injuries, and loss of life. But just because this one is believed to have been in that neighborhood does not necessarily mean that there's been extensive damage nor any severe injuries or loss.
Now West Coast time, so of course it's getting dark, making it difficult for folks to look for survivors. Also, the rubble is making it very difficult. There's a major fire that's happening at Divisadero and Beach Street, a city block. An entire city block is on fire. Buildings are collapsing and there are gas leaks. We do have a report of another fire that happened at the University of California, Berkeley. Power, phones, water, and that game, of course, canceled. We have an eyewitness for you on tape right now.
What was it like in the city?
Horrendous. It was awful.
Where were you working?
Neiman Marcus on the 4th floor, and there was glass everywhere, and it was really frightening. I don't want to go through it again. Never.
The gentleman in charge of the facility here. We will do that on Sports Center as we return to San Francisco after this.
Friday on all of those freeways I traversed quite frequently, and as far as preparedness goes, there has been always great fear that in a major earthquake, both sides of the bay would be cut off by fallen bridges, and the worst fear being a collapsed BART tunnel which runs under the bay. And we don't have a complete report on what the situation is with that tunnel. Hopefully they are evacuating all the people who were in those BART trains during rush hour. But these are among some of the busiest and heavily traveled freeways in the entire world. It's a very densely populated area, almost 6 million people, and these freeways are in use 24 hours a day with moderate to very heavy traffic. As far as overall preparedness, there has been a long-standing, long-running controversy and hopefully they did have enough protection. Those trains stop automatically during any kind of crisis, fires included. You
mentioned the next week and a half. Okay, wait a minute. We'll be back to you in a minute. We've got Greg Higgins.
Also, a major fire in the marina section of the city, and so I know that all of our Office of Emergency Services and all of the other emergency police and fire throughout the entire region are doing their very best, and we're trying to respond just as quickly and as...
Drove right into the hole. Another one followed. The amateur photographer's husband gave this eyewitness account to CBS affiliate KPIX TV.
The fellow that tried to jump it, it didn't look like it ever hit his brakes. He just, you know, was driving Oakland and going 50 or 60 miles an hour, and recognized it too late and jumped across. And when he hit, the car sank into the hole. You could see it tried to run up, and the front axle was bashed up underneath, and the people were in there for quite a long time.
An eyewitness who was riding on a bus was the first to get to the fallen car.
I jumped off the bus, ran over and pulled these people out of their cars. There was no injuries. Pretty scary. I only came out with a cut lip.
A Coast Guard rescue helicopter was summoned to the scene. 4 people were rescued, but one passenger in another car on the lower deck was apparently crushed to death. Harold Dow, CBS News, New York.
The Associated Press has rewritten its lead, and it now calls this a catastrophic earthquake, quote, unquote. Earlier it had been called certainly a major earthquake, a severe earthquake, and a violent earthquake. By calling it a catastrophic earthquake, you say, well, isn't that a bit strong? The answer is probably on the basis of current information, no. At least one person has been confirmed as killed. An investigation is proceeding about what happened to people who were below the...
And get into right field, because I thought that was a whole lot safer place to be than inside.
All right, we don't know when Game 3 of the World Series will be played. The commissioner said in that interview taped earlier tonight, they've got to assess the situation at Candlestick. They have to look at the structural question. They also have to consider the entire infrastructure of the Bay Area with the damages to the bridges and also to the highways and also to being responsible parts of this society.
Back then, but it pretty much leveled San Francisco.
As our crew has been reporting from Candlestick Park, if there is any good news to be gleaned from all this, is that people at the stadium, the 63,000 people who packed Candlestick Park, came through rather unscathed through all.
I was on the upper level of the second deck, left field, right out towards the edge. And when I felt right away I knew there was an earthquake, I could feel the floor tremble. I turned around to look at my son, 5 rows from me, and looked up at the top of the stadium.
That is the overhang, the concrete overhang.
And I could see the section separating and rocking back and forth like this.
What were people doing?
Francisco continues in just a minute.
Through, and at least one person was killed on the San Francisco Bay Bridge. Other people were injured. CBS News correspondent David Dow is at Candlestick Park, where the World Series game was canceled in a hurry once the earthquake rumbled through. David?
Well, Dan, here at Candlestick...
Miles to the north of Santa Cruz, about 65 miles, that would put it, south of San Francisco. The quake toppled buildings like stacks of cards across an area that is home to millions of people. An upper-level section of the Bay Bridge linking San Francisco and Oakland plunged to the lower section. Tops of a double-decker freeway system crashed to the lower levels in the Oakland area.
CNN's Bob Serkin has just joined Cable News Network.
Along this elevated section, it literally began to rumble and rock and roll and literally ripple apart. We had received...
Was centered near Santa Cruz.
Bridge bends over, and I saw, I think, some debris in the water. I can't
be sure, but it looked like debris in the water.
We had heard that people and cars had gone over the bridge and there were rescue crews trying to get to those people. Did you see anything like that?
There was a massive traffic jam and rescue crews couldn't get to the center of the bridge, and people came out, the rescue crews came out in bullhorns and just started directing people to stay on Treasure Island.
Eyewitnesses, people on the bridge, discussing exactly what happened when the earthquake hit. Captain Michael French is at the Letterman Medical Center, and we want to find out from him how many people have been brought in, what type of injuries. Can you hear me, Captain?
Yes, sir, I can.
Can you describe the scene at your medical?
Some of this architectural overhang that apparently fell down.
Again, we're looking at the pavement just below the 880.
Excuse me.
Mayor, has changed for the Bay Area, a time of great joy. The first ever Bay Area World Series between Oakland and San Francisco rudely interrupted tonight when the earthquake struck during pregame ceremonies for Game 3 at Candlestick Park. And of course, the city now will have to turn its attention from baseball in the World Series to restoration and recovery and to mourning, because at least 60 people have been killed so far. The full extent of the death toll we may not know until at least tomorrow morning and maybe even several days after that. From the beginning of the earthquake, which had occurred shortly after 5 tonight Pacific time, San Francisco is a city prepared to deal with earthquakes because it knows that it can always be struck, and it has a first-rate emergency response system. Smoke beginning now to pour out of various parts of the city. Broken gas lines, of course, a big concern. Has enormous power and force. As you can see, we believe this is probably on the Oakland Bay side of the bridge.
San Francisco quake of legend and fact, which was well above 8 at least on the Richter scale. But by anybody's count or measurement, an earthquake that goes 7.0 at the epicenter is a very large, violent, and catastrophic earthquake when it happens in a heavily populated area. Dead in this major earthquake in Northern California. Dan Rather for CBS.
The fires, of course, starting, and you just heard the mayor of San Francisco, Art Agnos, say that the fires are under control, including that major one that was at Devastation and Beach Street, the city block that was on where the bridge split. California Highway Patrol saying that at least 60 people confirmed killed in the collapse of a half-mile section of Interstate 880 freeway in Oakland, across the bay from San Francisco. And at least 6 people killed in the collapse of a building.
It was the mayor of Oakland. They were talking just by Rural Emergency Management Agency in Washington, and as he was leaving, CNN's cameras followed him out and got these comments.
Coordinated, and I believe effective federal effort under the leadership of FEMA, 25 more or less federal agencies coordinating their work to try to help in this disaster in San Francisco. So we got an up-to-date briefing on where things stood, but I had an opportunity to thank the men and women of FEMA and the volunteers. There's an enormous volunteer effort that adds and supplements the work, adds to and supplements the work people to assess damage, and then there will be, obviously, we follow on with assistance to families. Part of the
are back in the spotlight when Viewer's Choice presents.
Just really started shaking really bad, and you just heard things falling, and then as I was running, some guy tripped, and I tripped over him and bounced off the front window right before it broke, and it broke and showered me with glass. And my friend got hit with a concrete thing in his back.
The toll has been estimated at 271 dead, most of them crushed in cars caught in a collapsed 2-tiered roadway. The Federal Emergency Management Association is having a meeting now.
And this morning, rescue workers are using everything from their bare hands to dogs to try and find any more survivors. Following the collapse, people rushed to the scene to try to...
It's going to be probably a while.
It's going to be a long time.
At least 650 people, that is, have also been reported injured from the highway collapse and in other incidents from the earthquake. Sherry?
Vince, at least 2 people were killed when a 30-foot section of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge buckled and fell during the quake. A tourist shot this video as drivers, unaware of the danger, hit the huge gap in the roadway. The closing of the Bay Bridge has crippled transportation, leaving commuters with no major route east out of San Francisco.
We were in a UC van, and the van was going just like this. I couldn't believe it. And we're all okay.
Authorities in San Francisco are urging commuters to stay home today to avoid further taxing of the transportation system.
Out all over the Bay region, with the biggest fire in the Marina area, where a block of a dozen buildings went up in flames. Up to 20 people were reported injured in that fire. 1 million people are without power and other services, including telephone. There are also reports of looting and vandalism in San Francisco's major crack dealing areas. And with the transportation system crippled, tourist ferries are shuttling stranded commuters from the San Francisco area to the East Bay area. While the devastation continues...
inspection will be necessary before a decision is made on whether to play there. It's not known if the A's home park in Oakland suffered any damage. There's been talk of perhaps moving the series to a neutral site in some other city. Baseball Commissioner Fay Vincent says it's unlikely Game 3 will be played tonight. An announcement is expected to be made shortly.
The Midwest's leading seismologist